Welcome back to Around the Table with Stacy Smith as we take a look at the economy and investing. Every once in a while, a new area of investment opens up, such as AI. And now comes word of a major investment in hydrogen fuel across the country, including here in Western Pennsylvania. That investment's coming from the federal government. So, Michael, when something newer comes along, how do you know whether to invest in it or maybe some of the companies that would be associated with that?
Honestly, Stacy, in most instances, I don't think you know whether to invest in it or not until it's too late, or at least know which companies to invest in. For example, the internet was really in its infancy back in the late 90s. And I think we all probably knew that it was going to stick around, but most investors had no idea which company would succeed or which company would fall by the wayside. I can actually remember the website that I used to search for things on the internet, and you guys are all my age-ish. So it wasn't Google at the time. It was Ask Jeeves. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
I remember that.
Yeah. And at that time, I don't think many investors thought that it would be an online bookseller that would become arguably the most successful company to come out of the dot-com era. And now we know that Amazon is one of the biggest companies in the world. And then if you fast forward a few years, you look at the marijuana hype that occurred maybe 5-6 years ago or so. And I remember there was a lot of excitement around this space and a lot of investors piling money into companies that weren't even remotely on the verge of profitability. And if you look at where they are today, most of them, if not all of them, have lost at least 80% of their value. So the question today, Stacy, I think is really on AI or artificial intelligence. And I think that there is little doubt that this is a viable industry and one that will be around for the foreseeable future. But investing in it can be very difficult, right? You can invest in companies that design the chips for AI, such as NVIDIA, but that stock's up more than 200% this year, and it's arguably very expensive from a valuation standpoint. Or you can invest in some of the companies that develop the code for AI on the internet, such as Google or Microsoft or Facebook. Or you can invest in companies that are just trying to take advantage of AI. Companies like Boeing and Johnson & Johnson and McDonald's, they're all using AI to further their businesses. But trying to select that one company, that's probably for Kim, I think that's so hard to do right now. I think for the general investor, if you want to invest in that industry, it's probably best to do it via an ETF that will invest in multiple companies that are taking advantage of artificial intelligence.
I think the easiest way to judge any company, whether or not they're high tech or low tech, new or old, is to ask what value do they bring to their customers? And is that value more or less than what they're charging their customers? Especially in the area of technology, health stuff, biotech, and then in this hydrogen craze that's probably going to happen, you have to ask yourself, how much infrastructure is it going to cost, to make this happen, and kind of walk through the whole business. And I think that can answer some questions. The other thing is, and nobody likes this, but Amazon is a rarity. Incumbents generally win. So just keep that in the back of your head. And maybe it's the new company that gets eaten by an existing company. But these are my big rules of thumb. And I wish I could say, I love flying cars and I think we should all invest in them. I'm a little too practical for that. So there's my big rules of thumb.
And the other thing I think that's really important to watch is competition. When the Palm Pilot came out in the late 90s and the stock went berserk, it was pretty easy to step back and say, okay, this thing I hold in my hand, anyone can make one. So you have to look at really what the competitive advantage is and what the competition is doing, and is what someone is doing duplicatable by another company, looking into what patents they may have, etc. It's really, as the panel has said, by the time it's high flying, it's too late. So going with those companies, and Michael and Kim have mentioned, when you're looking at companies that are using certain technologies, or big companies that are investing in new technologies, rather than, this is my AI company and that's all I do.
All right. So all of you have said in the past that you want to see the earnings reports. You want to see how well the company is doing. So one of these newer companies comes along. How long do you wait to see how well those companies are doing? 1 year, 5 years?
Well, right now we have to figure out how they're going to monetize in artificial intelligence. At this point in time, there was only one company that I'm aware of that was charging for it, and their stock went down 90% because ChatGPT is giving it away for nothing. And we have to figure out where the monetization is. Is this going to be another drive for ad dollars, further diluting the corporate world's ability to promote their product, not knowing whose eyeballs, ears, or whatever it is going to watch it? I mean, Stacy, in your industry, you've seen this dilution affect everything. This is from an advertising perspective, further dilution, and minimizing the value of advertising, I suspect. So at this point in time, no one's making money on this. They're just trying to figure out what it is. So for those of us that are driven by earnings, it's really hard to have earnings when you have no revenue.
Yeah, which is what happened in '99 with the bubble burst in the tech stocks?
And what I'd say is, I'm probably, because I'm more growth oriented than the rest of the panel, maybe. I always look for a path to profitability that says that the company correctly is charging its customers, the customer base is growing, and maybe they just need some time to make their infrastructure catch up to what the income is going to be. But that is really the mother's milk here of investing, is when does the company make money? That's all they're in business for. They're there to return shareholder value, and they need to be making money.
All right, that's
just that simple.
That's a great segue into our next segment. We have to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment.